Okay, so this is the final day of baking. This is might be your day 3. I kind of prolonged things a little bit. This is actually my day 4, but this is baking day. So I had all of my proofing baskets or bannetons in the fridge overnight, and then when I got home today, I took them out. They've been sitting out for a little over 3.5 hours. It might take a little longer or a little less time to come to temperature and to double depending on the temperature of your house. Okay, and it can really vary how long it's going to take, so you're never really sure. If you look and they look nice and rounded and puffy, that's one indication. Another indication is called the poke test. So if you press down about an inch, if it's a little sticky, you might want to put a little flour down first. And if it immediately springs right back up, it's not ready. It's still underproofed. Okay, if you push down that inch and you and it comes back up slowly, but it leaves a little indentation, which is what this is doing right now, that's ready to bake. And if you press down and nothing pops back up, you've actually overproofed it. So it's a little too late to bake. You still can, but you're not going to get as nice oven rise. So poke test. Okay, you want that slow rise, but still leaving an indentation. Means ready to bake, which this is. Okay, so I'm going to bring this onto some parchment. You can put a little cornmeal or something down there if you want. If you're afraid it's going to stick, or a little bit of flour. Okay, you can just ease it out of your banneton. Okay, like I said, with the rice flour on there, that's going to come out quite quickly, quite easily. That excess flour, you can kind of just brush it off. You can see the lines that were made by the banneton. And at this point you can get creative. You can do all different kinds of scoring. There's a million videos already out there. Generally you want your scoring to be not straight on and not flat, somewhere at about a 20-degree angle. Okay, that's what's going to give you that nice lift. You can just use a straight razor if you want. If you don't have a razor blade, you could use a serrated bread knife, super sharp knife, something like that. You might get a little bit of drag, but something's better than nothing. Okay, this is called a lame, L-A-M-E. You can get all kinds of different fancy ones or cheap ones on the internet, on Amazon, all over the place. But you can just take a straight razor blade as well. Okay, the purpose of this is that it curves it a little bit. Get it back in there again. It curves it a little bit, which helps a little bit, but really just a serrated knife or a flat razor blade, like I said, will work as well. Okay, so just a little bit of an angle. Start at one edge. Okay, and a nice smooth cut will give you that nice rise. Okay, you can go in a little bit more if you want. If you want a little bit more rise, okay, you can add a little excess on there. Okay, you could take it off and do some decorative scoring. You'll see again a lot of things in the internet of things like this. Not necessary, but if you want to add a little bit of design to your bread, and there's lots of YouTube videos out there of people who get quite intricate, do quite fancy scoring, but anything at all, experiment with it. It's kind of fun to see how it turns out. Okay, okay, so at this point my oven has been preheating for close to an hour, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. If all you have is a pizza stone, that's fine, but you might want to put in something to add steam. Some people use ice cubes. There's also different kinds of ways. I kind of go to the simplest route, and I use a Dutch oven that has a closed lid. And so the benefit of that is it creates its own steam. And I also have a clay baker, which I use for the oval shaped ones. You'll see in a minute. And that again, because it has a closed lid, it creates its own steam. And so I don't need to add ice cubes or hot water or something into the oven to try and create steam. Okay, so this is done quite quickly because you don't want to lose heat out of your oven. Okay, there's my bottom. And my bread goes in. And you're going to get oven steam in about the first 2 to 3 minutes. So you want to try and get that in there with the least loss of heat. Keep the oven door closed. This is set to about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's preheated, I turn it down to about 460, somewhere around there between 450 and 470. And then I let that cook for about 20 minutes. After that, I take the lid off because you want to have that browning at the top of the bread at that point. Then I leave it for about another 6 to 10 minutes depending, and we'll take it at that point. With an internal thermometer, you want it to register about 205 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to leave that in there for 20 minutes. We'll take the lid off, and then we'll give it another few more minutes until it gets to 205 Fahrenheit. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. I'm going to take the bread out of the oven, take the lid off, and then just put it back in so that the top of it can brown. You see there's been quite a bit of oven spring. Looking pretty good. A lot of steam came out of there when I opened the lid. That's nice to see. And put it back in. Okay, I also did another one. I did the round ones. So we'll take that out as well. Take the lid off there as well. Okay, you see nice oven spring, but it needs to be a little browner. So now it goes back into the oven as well. Okay, so sometimes at this size of a loaf, it only takes about 6 or 7 minutes now with the lid off. If you have a much bigger loaf, maybe up to about 1,000 grams, it could take another 10 to even 20 minutes, and depending on what temperature you've had it in your oven. So we're going to check it again in about 7 minutes, and that should be 205 degrees Fahrenheit with an internal thermometer and nicely browned on top. You can leave it to as brown as you like. Some people like a really crusty crust and they like it quite dark caramelization on top. Some people prefer more of a golden crust, and that's fine too, so long as you have about 205 degrees internal temperature. Then from there you can just make it according to what you like as far as the brownness on top. Okay, so it's been about 7 minutes. I'm gonna check and see if the internal temperature of the bread is about 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and if so, it'll be done. Here you see you have a nice browning on top. I highly recommend getting an internal thermometer if you don't have one. Just aim for somewhere in the middle of the loaf. Okay, we're at about 206. Okay, so that one is done. Try not to burn yourself. Okay, take it out and put it on a cooling rack. You can reuse your parchment if you want, if it's not too gunky. Okay, I have 2 more loaves to bake, so I'm going to put this one back into the oven to preheat a little bit. Okay, we're going to take out the other one and check its internal temperature. Okay, it's right on 206 as well, so that one's good. Okay, again, nice brownie. You can see where there's some nice oven spring. Okay, a little smaller loaf. And this is going to go back in the oven for the next batch. The last thing before you eat your bread is you want to make sure it cools. You might hear it making some noises. It's called singing, and that's a good thing. If you cut into it right now, it'll be quite gummy on the inside, and you're going to lose a lot of that great moisture that forms the nice crumb inside. Some people say you should wait several hours. I personally, loaves this size, I would recommend waiting 1 hour at least. up to 2, and then you could start to cut into it at that point. A nice sharp bread knife is best, but if you don't have a serrated bread knife, of course anything would work. Okay, and hopefully you have bread that smells and tastes delicious.